So I'm going to get over here, let everybody know. Welcome to Bible study. If you're watching, make sure you leave a reaction. Let us know you're watching or a comment, please. I was just telling the group here a week ago, we took up a collection. We raised $2,956 from Saturday night to Sunday morning to help the guys from Calvary Chapel go down to Asheville, North Carolina to help with the cleanup from the hurricane. And Lance, I got everything. We collected stuff. He's going to tell you what all they took down there, but we had a nice little collection of stuff. And so it's just great to know that locally, somebody going down there that we could trust, because I didn't want to give it to the Red Cross or somebody I don't know what they're doing with it. I wanted to make sure it was going to ministry. So we actually just gave him a check because they footed the bill or foot the bill.
Yeah, footed the bill, whatever.
They took care of the bill prior, and so Lance has got pictures. He's going to share pictures. He's going to tell us what it's all about. And I just want to say thank you for going down. I will make mention, his hair was about 10 times longer than it is now, and he wisely chopped it off before he went down, because I'm sure he had a little less mud to clean up when he was done. But let's welcome Lance and tell him thanks for doing it.
So as you are aware, September 27th, Hurricane Helene barreled up into western North Carolina, and they've never seen anything like that. When hurricanes hit landfall, they just die, right? This is still a hurricane as it's up in the mountains of western North Carolina. And what you might not be aware of is there was a cold front ahead of that hurricane. So it rained for a long time prior. So the ground was already saturated, the rivers had already swollen, and then they got somewhere around 30, 32 inches of rain. It's unheard of. And if you've ever been to western North Carolina, you've got towns, cities, Asheville, and I'm now a lot more familiar with. I had been to Asheville before. I've been to the Biltmore Village. But there's a lot of these mountain communities where it's a hollow, or as they call them, hollers. It's just a stream coming down the mountain. Well, every one of these streams just became a freight train. And it's just unbelievable what happened. But I'll get into that. So let me tell you about how we got into this. So we heard about the storm, and that weekend I have a friend, a high school college friend, who lives just south of Asheville in Fletcher. And I texted her and her husband used to work for the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. I texted her, how are you doing? Did you survive the storm? Didn't hear anything. A couple days later, didn't hear anything. I think it was Monday. We just got power back on. Giant tree fell in my yard, but we're okay. No internet. Cell service is just about non-existent. But she goes, but it's really bad. It's really bad down here. On Thursday of that week, Thursday morning, I got together with our pastor, Pastor Jeff York. He and I get together Thursday mornings, and we just jam and play some songs, we're trying to learn some bluegrass music and stuff.
All right.
And I was saying, man, I understand it's really bad down in North Carolina. When I was younger, when I was employed, before I retired, I would see these things like Katrina, right, or these big disasters, and teams were going down to help out. But I couldn't go. I had a job and responsibilities.
Hello?
I was sitting there with Jeff, and I said,
Yeah.
now I'm able to go.
Ooh.
I think I should go. I know Jenny would be okay with me going. And then he started sharing his daughter, Kay York, is a probation officer in Morganton, North Carolina, which is just east of Asheville, maybe 45 minutes or so. She lives in Fletcher. And the day after the storm, so that was a Friday, on a day after the storm, she had about 20 of her coworkers they didn't report in, and they couldn't get a hold of them, so they got worried. So she knew that they were from a town called Spruce Pine, and she knew that Spruce Pine had gotten hit really hard. So Jeff was recounting some of her stories. Some of it might have gotten lost in translation. There was a lot of stuff going on at the time, and we couldn't figure out what was real and what wasn't real. She had taken a bunch of her coworkers, traveled to North Spruce Pine, which is maybe 30 minutes from Morganton, and the roads were all blocked. They had a side-by-side. They took a side-by-side up into some of these mountain areas. They were looking for people, and her and her team found 3 deceased individuals on this first four-way. One was an older couple in a car. They were trying to get out, just didn't make it. So that was sort of solidifying in my mind, I got to get down there. I called my son, or maybe I texted. I texted my son Jacob, and I said, what do you think about taking a trip to North Carolina? And it was kind of like just a little like, hey, let's go to North Carolina. I didn't figure he'd be able to go. And he says, I've been on the phone with Kay York all morning. When do we leave? And he asked his boss, because he's 37, so he's got a family, he works. And his boss said, yes, you can have the time off, and we'll donate $750 to the cause. So they donated some fuel and some other things. It was really nice to have them. So at first it was just him and I. We're like, and this is a Thursday. Friday, we kind of put this thing all together. Then you guys got involved. On Saturday, we, am I drifting?
Yeah.
Okay. On Saturday, we found out Doug Stroop was going to come. He's one of the, another older gentleman from our fellowship. And I thought, well, 3's good. Well, then we had 2 young bucks, Cale Hunt, who's 18, and Joash Chamberlain, who's 40, maybe right around in there. And so it was nice. Now we had 5 guys to go. Another little side story, my middle son, his wife is from Rhode Island. They live in Meadville. Erin is her name, his wife. My son Caleb's, you know Caleb, my son Caleb. His wife's name is Erin. She's from Rhode Island. Her father moved from Rhode Island to Meadville to be near the family. So he says, I'd like to go too. I can't come down until Tuesday. Well, his other daughter, Mary's sister, Erin's sister Mary, lives in Mars Hill, which is just north of Asheville. They were okay, but they had a giant tree down across their driveway, so they couldn't get out. They had no power, no water, no internet, and this tree was tangled up in power lines, and so they were not really willing to saw it up and take it out. So he wanted to go down, and we set out 6 a.m. Monday morning, so a week ago Monday, and I'll tell you, you know what it's like. When you're doing anything for the Lord, you know the enemy's going to throw stuff at you, right? So this is Sunday. This is Saturday. Saturday night. We went to Walmart. Some people had donated water. And then the Lander Fire Department donated a pallet of water. So we had 4 pallets of water and about 9,000 pounds. Jacob owns this trailer and a side-by-side. So we went down to Walmart, but they wouldn't give us their pallets. So we literally had to take every case of water and transfer it up to our own pallets. And then we had to try to re-shrink wrap it and then get it home. And Jake lives up on Norberg Road in Pine Grove Township, just north of the golf course. So we knew we'd have to strap this stuff. Have you ever tried to ratchet strap a pallet of water? Well, it just crushes. And so we said, well, we need something on top. So we drove over to Lowe's. They donated some pallets. And we put pallets on top and strapped it down. Well, it still crushes. But we had it strapped. We thought would be good. We drove up to his driveway. His driveway is pretty steep. We got going up his driveway and kind of curved around, and an entire pallet of water flipped off, dumped all over. So we had to pick it up by hand, one case at a time, put it back on there. But then, we're getting frustrated because it's like the attacks are starting. And Jake's brother-in-law, Adam Billstone, happened to drive in, and we were talking to him about this situation. And he says, I have a solution, I'll be back. And we bought cans of food, and you can see that box there on the trailer. That's the crate that Adam Billstone and Jake built to hold all the water, to keep it safe. It made it all the way to North Carolina. So this is Monday morning. We made it to Barkeyville. We stopped for some breakfast, took a little selfie, and then we headed out. We made it all the way to Bristol, Tennessee. It's a kind of a long story. This isn't the route we had intended to go. We needed to go down 77 to 40. All the other 26 was iffy. My phone was telling me that 26 was open southbound but closed northbound. So we decided to go into Bristol, Tennessee. We heard that the cell reception was horrible. Your GPS in your phone is great until there's no cell service. Right. And we're going to be maneuvering around these mountains. So we decided we wanted to get a pocket GPS unit. They had one at a Bass Pro Shop in Bristol, Tennessee. So that's why we went that way. And we stopped for dinner. Jake says, he was behind me. He goes, your trailer looks a little like something's going on with one of the wheels.
Of course.
And, the trailer's old. It's about 13 years old, but we've kept it up. Jake had just used it to go to South Carolina in the spring, and he greased all the wheels and everything. Well, he comes over and he kicks my right side rear wheel, and it went toot toot. Ain't supposed to do that. And so he shook it, and sure enough, it's loose. We called the church. We were 3 hours from Calvary Chapel, Vashville, and he said, you can't come that way. 26 is closed. You're going to have to come up over Roan Mountain in order to get to us. And he goes, there's no way you can make it with that wheel like that. Our plan was to try to coax it there. They had some people that could fix it. So we're going, Lord, we're trying to get down here. Now we're at like our second little attack. But thank God for Doug Stroop. He's like, well, let's go up to the Tractor Supply. We'll set up the lights in the parking lot. We'll check the wheel bearings. If the wheel bearing's bad, we'll go in and we'll buy a wheel bearing. So we do that. It was 8 miles away to the thing. Jake pulls out the wheel bearing, and they pull the whole thing apart. They've got the wheel bearings. They go in. Tractor Supply doesn't sell them. There was another place next door. They don't sell them. There was a third place next door. They don't have them. And so we can't buy this part. And it's getting late at this point. It's 10 o'clock at night, something like that. And we're still 3 hours away from Asheville. Well, they start looking at the wheel bearing, and this wheel bearing looks perfectly fine. So we bought a grease gun and some grease. They packed that thing full of grease, put it all back together. It was solid as a rock, and it made it all the way, the rest of the way, and all the way back. Praise the Lord. So we got into Calvary Chapel of Asheville 1:30 in the morning, and I had been given 2 numbers to call when we arrived. One was a Paul, one was a Tom. So I texted both of these numbers. I said, I'm sorry it's so late. Are either of you up and can let us in the church? Otherwise, we're going to sleep in the trailer. It's going to be a little chilly. Paul comes out, and I got to tell you this story. You know how he walks up to me, and I had to almost step back for a second. The guy is tattooed from head to toe. Tattoos across his forehead. Teardrops around his eyes. He has a Fu Manchu mustache tattooed on his face. He's got gauged ears. And he walks up to me, he gives me a hug, and he says, God bless you guys, brothers, for being here. And I'm like, so he was, basically a Satanist in his younger days, got saved, and now he's serving God on these things. And he does prison ministries, and he walks into prisons looking like that, and they immediately connect with him, and he just, what a ministry this guy has. And it was just astonishing because it was a little shocking, us country bumpkins up here in western Pennsylvania and New York, but he had a great heart for the Lord, and he was doing so much work. So he let us in. That's the church. They had some damage around their property, a lot of trees down. Crews had kind of taken care of that. This is my trailer. We had all of our tools, all of the food supplies, all the other supplies other than the water were in here. Everything that we were going to need. I set up a tent. This kind of became our command post for the time being. And they gave us the whale room in the church, the Sunday school room with the big whale on the wall. So we had a warm place to sleep. They did not have any showers initially. So we were kind of like, where are we going to, be taking baths in the Mills River or what? They had a sign up saying, here's our crisis supplies. And we walked in, and so this is the first morning. Lee here was from California, and he was helping with, that's my son Jake, and Lee was helping with organizing the supplies. And there's a lot there, but nothing compared to what was there by the time we left. And so you can see it was starting to come in, but they outgrew this in a matter of a day or two. So toothbrushes, some of the canned foods we brought in. Yeah.
So if I can interject.
Yep.
One of the things that happened is there's a well-known Calvary Chapel pastor down there named Sandy Adams, who, I don't know if you were aware of, well, you watched the video. I recommended a video the other day of the pastor of this church and his experience, but one of the reasons it became so well known and they got overran is a Calvary Chapel pastor down there, pretty popular in the Calvary Chapel Association, put out an announcement that this Calvary Chapel church got hit pretty bad and that they could use some help. And it went out to all the Calvary Chapels, and they just started lining up and bringing stuff down. I mean, they have a great network of churches, so I don't know if that's how you guys found out about it, but that went out, and I mean, when I watched that video, now watching this, I mean, it just makes sense how they got overrun, because one guy put that out, and all of these Calvary Chapels just rallied around and said, let's help.
Yep. I connected with him the Thursday morning. I was with Pastor Jeff. We were talking about it, and he says, you guys should go. And I said, well, let's call Calvary Asheville right now. I got a church secretary, and she was talking about the devastation. She had trees down on her building, and let me get one of the pastors to call you back. So Pastor Alan Painter called me back and said, yeah, you guys can come. We'll put you up. It's real early in the whole process. So that's a little video of just some of the early supplies. So this is Monday morning, and there was a lot of stuff that came in. I hope I have another picture that kind of shows how much, well, we'll get to that. They brought in 2 circus tents, these giant tents, and by the time they left, one of those tents was filled to the gills.
Wow.
And they had another one that they were using as well. This is a sign on their property, and it ended up being where all that refuse, trees. You are now entering the mission field, and nothing could be further from the truth. So the very first morning, about 9 a.m., they had a little devotional. The various teams were in the sanctuary. Paul was giving us an idea. And I got to tell you this, it surprised me, and it became so true. He said, listen, I want to tell you something about what you're going to face out there. He's done this kind of stuff before. He said, these people are in shock. They're in such dire straits. They're overwhelmed. He goes, whatever you do, don't just rush in and then just start ripping and tearing, working your tail off, ignoring the people. He said, you have to talk to them. And you have to, the first thing they want to know is, do you care? They don't care how much you know till you know how much you care. Well, he said, nothing's more true. And this is what he said, and it was so true. He said, these people do not trust the government. They don't trust non-governmental agencies. They don't trust the Red Cross. But they're learning that the only people with boots on the ground, getting dirty, getting muddy, and helping them are the Christians. And so they're very open to churches coming in and helping. And this very first morning, we said, what do you want us to do? And he goes,